AI agents and AI automation are not the same. A chatbot that only responds with preset answers isn't an agent. An email autoresponder that just sends scheduled, triggered responses is not an agent either. And a social media scheduler that posts content at set times, you guessed it, isn't an AI agent. And since this topic is trending right now, it can be super easy to confuse the two. But once you get your head around it, you'll be able to build better workflows for both yourself and your clients. So today, I'm going to cover what is an AI agent versus an automation. What's the difference between the two? We're going to show you examples of both, and ultimately, when and how to use each of these when implementing AI in your business is going to save you a ton of time, and you're going to look better for your clients. And if you're new here, I help teach entrepreneurs to implement AI within their business and other businesses through my paid school community, school.com/scrapes. We've got a ton of resources for those starting out, including step-by-step courses and ready-to-use templates to plug into your business. Now let's jump straight back and I'll show you exactly the difference between an AI agent and an automation. So we're going to start off with what an AI agent is not, because that probably makes it clearer given what you already know. So you'll probably be familiar with ChatGPT. ChatGPT is just a layer on top of a large language model, or what we call an LLM. It takes our queries as inputs and it produces outputs. So we type our message in and it gives us an output. And the way that works is a large language model is trained on billions of parameters and lots of data. It works by predicting the next most likely word in a sequence. So we ask it a question. It then uses its training data to provide an answer of the most likely words in that next sequence. So the next concept we're going to cover is really, really important in distinguishing between an LLM and something like an AI agent. So we're going to cover agentic and non-agentic workflows. And once you understand this concept, you'll understand that AI agents always fall within agentic workflows, but you can also have agentic workflows that don't have AI agents inside them. So a non-agentic workflow is like prompting ChatGPT or typing a query into ChatGPT. And we call this zero-shot prompting or non-agentic workflows. Something like, please type out an essay on topic X from start to finish in one go without using backspace. So we are prompting the large language model and it's giving us a response based on its training data. An agentic workflow breaks down that task into multiple subtasks and makes decisions based on the data, but also decisions based on the research that it conducts. So an example of it breaking down subtasks here might be write an essay on electric cars, and then it's asking itself, okay, do we need any web research to support that? And perhaps it's going out and actually grabbing that research from a tool that's connected to it. Then it's writing the first draft based on that research. And then it's, in the next step, considering what part needs revision or more editing, and actually then telling itself, okay, these are the bits we need to edit, and editing it itself. So instead of this single linear flow from start to finish, the agentic workflow breaks down the different subtasks and actually thinks and revises based on the information and feedback that it's provided back to itself. And this can be inside one singular AI agent that's giving itself steps and planning out a task, or it could be multiple LLMs chained together in order to create a sequence of feedback or a sequence of decisions. The important part here is that while both of these use AI or can use AI, the agentic workflow exhibits agency, i.e. becomes agentic, through its ability to make decisions and adapt its strategy based on the content it encounters, rather than following a fixed processing path. So it's able to make decisions dynamically based on the inputs and take dynamic paths based on that information. That will all become really clear in the next few examples. We're now going to cover a business example. If we were building out a workflow, what would it look like side by side if it was agentic versus non-agentic? So we're going to use an example where we're building out an invoice parser. So we're receiving in an email with an attachment of an invoice, and actually we're processing that invoice and extracting the key information like supplier details, total price, invoice number, and various details based on that attachment. That attachment can come in any format. So it could be a PDF, it could be an XML, it could be a docx, it could be the text inside the email. We have two flows here which represent how that could be done in a non-agentic way, and on the right hand side how that could be done in an agentic way. So on the left hand side we have a single linear flow that takes our email. An AI node or LLM extracts all of the information from that template, and we are looking for template matches, i.e. supplier number, invoice number, VAT references. It's going to extract all the information that it can from that text, and then it's either going to take a linear path of, okay, was it a success? Yes, we'll add it to our database. Was it a success? No, then we will flag an error. But no further action is taken from this. It's from start to finish, non-agentic, because it's not making any decisions. It follows a simple linear path from the email receipt to storage or error handling. There's a single LLM extraction attempt. So it doesn't matter what type of content has come in. If this is only built for PDFs or only built for text, then it's just going to try and extract based on the information we've given it. And it's not going to adapt its approach. It's just going to be a one-size-fits-all approach, try and pull the text from the PDF. But if it doesn't have the functionality to do that, then it's going to fail. We then have a binary success/failure option. So we have no option there to retry the process. And then it's going to try and match a fixed template regardless of what format the invoice comes back in. So in summary, it makes it non-agentic because there are no decisions or adaptation in the flow. There's no feedback loop where it's iterating on its own understanding. It can be connected to tools, but no decision is made based on the input of what tools to use. And this example, we've not connected it to any tools. And then there is a fixed output every time, same output. This contrasts to the agentic invoice parser, which you can see when we go through, makes decisions and provides feedback to itself. So we receive the email in, we're then classifying the content, i.e. understanding what data format is it in. Has it come in as a PDF? Has it come in as text? Has it come in as XML file? We're then passing it to the AI or LLM node here. And this could also be an AI agent. We'll come on to the specifics of what makes it an AI agent. And then based on the content it's received, it's then taking a decision. Okay, I've received a PDF, so I'm going to take this route. So it's making a dynamic decision based on the inputs. Okay, I've received an image, so I'm going to go and scan the image using an OCR tool. Or I've received text and therefore I'm going to take this route. So it's dynamically making that decision based on the input data. Whereas previously in the non-agentic flow, it was just a linear flow. It didn't matter what the input was, it would always take the same actions. We've then got a validation step. So we will have another AI or LLM node that tells us and feeds back to the previous step. Was that attempt successful? If it wasn't, then we have the chance to actually do it again and feed it back into the dynamic field extractor. So in summary, this is an agentic invoice parser because it features multiple extraction routes based on these different file types. It includes confidence-based processing and actually feeds back information to itself to make sure that it's correct. It has access to these different tools, so it can actually dynamically choose which route to take and which tool to use. And importantly, it can refine its own strategy to improve extraction success. So based on the feedback, it can run again to make sure that we've got a successful run. So the thing that makes this agentic is, yes, there were decisions on actions to take, and it took those decisions. Yes, there is a feedback loop, i.e. it can process its own output again in a second run. Yes, we can connect it to tools again, like the 3 we've connected to. And most importantly, it's got a variable output. We're not expecting a fixed output. When we've got variable inputs, we're expecting variable outputs. So we're going to go across now and understand how this presents itself in our workflow automation software, N8N. So when we consider our workflow automation, N8N, we have a bunch of different options. If you open up AI nodes, you have a load of different options you can see down this right-hand side. I'm going to explain now what makes some LLM nodes versus what makes some AI agents, and we'll cover the specifics of what is an AI agent within an agentic workflow. So the LLM nodes, going back to our agentic versus non-agentic workflows, LLM nodes and workflows can be agentic only if you make them. So if we have feedback or decisions, or we chain multiple of these together to create dynamic routes and actions, then they will be agentic. But they also cannot be agentic. If we just had one basic LLM chain, we're effectively using that like we would ChatGPT. We're just inputting a message and it's retrieving a response and giving us an output based on its context. I'm going to quickly run through now all of the different LLM nodes that you can use and which ones you'll most frequently use for automating your business workflows in N8N. So I've put them all on the canvas here so you can see exactly what they look like, and they're all connected to one single OpenAI chat model, but you can actually connect these to individual models. They don't have to be OpenAI, they could be any other platform, but it's just for demonstration. These are all connected to one model because you can actually do that. Now, on the right-hand side, what you'll see in the tools bar are the different options, and each of these options have been created so that it's easy for you to understand which one you'd pick for a specific use case. But under the hood, it is effectively an LLM with a different system prompt designed to do a specific task. So take, for example, the information extractor. This says it extracts information from a text in a structured format. So this is just an LLM node, or we're just sending a prompt or an input to something like ChatGPT and a model of ChatGPT like 4.0 mini or 3.5. And it's just told to extract information. And inside that node, we tell it what information and what text to extract from. We then have the sentiment analysis tool, which again is told, okay, we need to extract the sentiment, neutral or negative, from the input text. And that's really useful when you want to understand from a large piece of text or customer feedback whether things were positive, neutral, or negative. We could do the same with just an LLM prompt. We just change the prompt and give it more information about what makes a positive text, what makes neutral text, what makes negative text. But these are predefined nodes with prompts already made for us that make it easier to do certain actions. We then have the text classifier, which again is just a prompt that says, classify this text into distinct categories. And it will have underneath some clear examples of categorizing that text. But at the end of the day, it's just an input and an output based on our input text. We then have a summarization chain. Same here, we're contacting an LLM. We're using an LLM to summarize a block of text that we pass in. And then we have the most generic basic LLM chain, which you'll probably use the most because it's the most flexible and we can adapt the prompt to how we want to see the output. We can give it clear examples, etc. The basic LLM chain is a simple chain to prompt a large language model. So this is the same as going to ChatGPT, choosing the model you want, like GPT 3.5, and putting in a set of instructions, a role, some examples of the output you want. We can do that all in the basic LLM chain, but it's still not an AI agent and not necessarily an agentic workflow. We can use this basic LLM chain And it can be in a non-agentic workflow. If we've got that linear flow, there's no feedback, there's no actions, and there's no decisions being made based on that information. If it's just a linear flow input, LLM output, then it's a non-agentic workflow. And for all of these LLM nodes that we've covered here, none of them can connect to tools. None of them can look at historic messages they've received, so they have no memory. And none of them can perform function calls. So they are simply input text and output text based on the content that you provide and its training data. We finally have the question and answer chain, which looks a little bit like an AI agent because it has a tool attached to it. So we can actually attach a memory to it or a database like a vector store. And this is an LLM chain designed to answer the input questions based on the attached documents. So this would be in the non-agentic workflow and LLM category because it's a linear flow. We're not asking it to make decisions based on the data. We're asking it to retrieve data based on our inputs. So you can see there's quite a lot of LLM nodes in N8N, but they're designed to make it really easy to do specific tasks. But if we want to keep it more generic, then we're going to use the basic LLM chain and create our own prompt. And that's still a really powerful tool. And remember, these can be agentic workflows or involved in agentic workflows only if you make them make decisions, have feedback, attach them to tools, etc. But they also cannot be. They can also just be LLM nodes if that's what you need them for. And the idea behind this is we are trying to leverage the best thing for what we need for our business. There's a snippet I took from the N8N documentation here, which I thought was a really powerful sentence that distills what an AI agent is versus an LLM. So while LLMs only process input to produce outputs, AI agents add goal-oriented functionality. They can use tools, process their own outputs, and make decisions to complete tasks and solve problems. So they've got a little table here of the features of an LLM versus an AI agent, and it just simplifies the view what each of those does. So again, an LLM does not make any decisions. It's just generating text based on our input query. Whereas an AI agent is actually looking to complete a task and making decisions on how best to complete that task. So yes, it's making decisions. Yes, we can connect it to tools and APIs. And it's given two clear examples at the bottom here. So an LLM can generate a paragraph, whereas an AI agent actually could schedule an appointment. And the reason we progress to AI agents over LLMs is when we want them to perform complex real-world tasks where they actually make decisions on our behalf. So we finally got to it, AI agents. Understanding all of that is really important to understand exactly what an AI agent does. So I've got this great graphic I found made by Cobus Grayling, and I saw it first on LinkedIn, and it distills quite nicely everything we've spoken about so far that would make something an AI agent. So we've got the user input coming in on the left-hand side. Then we've got the LLM. So we always have some sort of LLM interaction here. However, the difference here is that the LLM is taking decisions and also able to access certain tools. So for example here, it might have access to the web. It might have access to certain tools like a weather API, a maths library or calculator. It might have access to a document database like a RAG database. It's then going to make an observation, and based on that observation, understand if it's completed the task or not. And often it won't have completed the task on the first go. And we're actually going to cycle back and speak to the LLM again, which is going to give us the next set of tasks that we might want to take. So it might now say, okay, we want to search the web for more research, or we want to edit the content we've currently got. What tools do we need to do that? It's then going to pass the observation, and it's going to cycle through this loop probably multiple times, especially for complex tasks. And when it observes and understands that it's actually completed the required task, at that point, a final answer is reached and it will send the output. So instead of just an LLM where we'd have the user input, the LLM straight to the output, we've got this observation and decision phase that could include multiple external tools until the final answer is reached, and it's able to iterate on its own understanding as we go through to get to a better output. So you might be wondering at this stage, when in our business would we use an AI agent versus just using an LLM? And we're going to get to that. But first, we're going to cover the AI agent nodes inside our workflow automation N8N. So, contrast to the LLMs, if you have an AI agent in your workflow, then they are agentic workflows by nature because the AI agent is making those decisions, taking action connected to the tools. So we're going to run over the key AI agent nodes within N8N and how you use them and why you use different ones. So the most familiar agent will probably be this tools agent. So inside our nodes, we can type in tools agent or AI agent, and it'll be the first drop down within the AI agent. So the description for this is it utilizes structured tool schemas for precise and reliable tool selection and execution. It's recommended for complex tasks requiring accurate and consistent tool usage, but only usable with models that support tool calling. So there's a couple of key things we can take from that description. The first is that we use this for complex decision making that might require external tools. So on the left-hand side, you can see that we've connected this tools agent to a series of different tools. The first is a database of memory. So we might use this to understand what a user has queried in the past. Say, for example, we're a customer service chatbot, we'd have that memory here. We might attach a company knowledge base to that so that it can search the company knowledge base and find the appropriate answer. We've then attached some more functional tools like an email workflow, so we can connect up other N8N workflows that conduct specific tasks. We might, for example, have an auto emailer that is emailed based on the user query. This tools agent might have the ability to schedule calendar invites, and we'd prompt that inside the LLM prompt, telling it what information it is likely to send to the calendar. But again, it is an AI agent, so it might be able to interpret from the input data, one, if it's missing any information, but two, if it's got all the information, what information it should send through. So for example, a Google Calendar, we know to set up a calendar invite, we need to know several key bits of information. We need to know who it's with and their email. We need to know what the invite is about, and we need to know the time. So the AI agent, the tools agent here, is able to determine that info or work out whether it doesn't have the right information based on the user input, and then use the tool if appropriate. And then finally, we've connected it to a HTTP request. So we're able to connect it to any API that we want. And this might be to pdf.co for document processing. So say we receive a document in, it might understand at that point that we want to merge or split out a PDF and actually use that tool. But the key thing here is it's making a decision based on that and providing itself with feedback on the success of what it has done so far. And on the right-hand side, you can see a sample of all of the different tools that we can actually connect it to. It includes things like Google Mail, Google Calendar, Calculator. There's a lot of different tools, and they are always bringing out more tools that we can connect these agents to, making them even more powerful out the box. And any that we cannot connect to, we can usually connect to through the HTTP request tool through the APIs. So all of this theory is no good if we don't know how to apply it in certain situations. So we're going to go through now a few different business cases where we might use a non-agentic workflow, an agentic workflow, and what an agent might actually do in that scenario. So we first have a customer support workflow. So we want to enhance our customer support processes, and we're going to do that using workflows. We could have a non-agentic workflow, and this might be where we have a linear flow. A chatbot follows a predefined response template. So we have a series of questions and answers that it's able to use, some fixed and some fixed escalation paths based on certain keywords that trigger it. So this might be a chatbot that's just trained on our FAQs, but isn't able to think on its feet and able to perform more actions than just sending escalation or returning an FAQ answer. If we were to make that agentic, then the things that we might include are a human feedback loop. So we might be able to escalate to a human who gives us feedback, and then our agent or workflow is able to adapt to the human's feedback. We might have dynamic response generation. So it's able to think about, based on some context, what it should respond rather than sticking to the predefined response templates. And then we may have different scenario routing based on things like, does the customer want to place an order? We will take this action with the customer or send them down this route. Does the customer want to escalate to a manager? We'll take them down this route. So it's able to think about what the customer is inquiring about and use appropriate routes or tools and dynamically choose those. And an AI agent within that might be able to use those different routes that we mentioned, so multi-channel support management, but also use its understanding of sentiment analysis to understand how do we prioritize these queries coming in. Going down to sales, we might have manual lead qualification for a non-agentic workflow with fixed outreach templates, whereas an agentic flow might be able to work out a lead score based on the inputs and dynamically choose the route that that lead goes down and choose a personalized approach for that customer. And the AI agent may help with that lead qualification and scoring, as well as personalized outreach or meeting scheduling. For content creation, you can see it follows a similar gist, which is non-agentic workflows may be creating content based on our template inputs, whereas an agentic flow may be able to conduct real-time topic research and optimize and change the templates based on the content or research. The AI agent, as part of that, might be doing the topic research, conducting web searches or SEO research, as well as referring to our brand voice guidelines and able to dynamically adapt our content to the brand voice. And the final example we have here is document processing. So again, non-agentic would be a linear flow with no feedback loops. And we covered this in the invoice parser as part of document processing. An agentic flow would be able to dynamically extract data based on the content that's input, based on its understanding of what we want to output. So if, for example, we told it to split the PDFs, it might reach out to the split PDF API and understand that it needs to perform that action and understand whether that action has been performed correctly and whether the inputs we received in the first place were in the right format to do so. So that rounds up AI agents, agentic workflows, and non-agentic workflows, as well as how all of these things can be used to enhance certain processes in our business.